Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Go-Go Loser Ranger Season 2, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So the opening this episode catches us up a tiny bit with the real Hibiki, which I thought was interesting because I'm trying to remember. I want to say the last shot of Season 1, and like the last scene is like of Hibiki. It's like close up on his face if I'm not mistaken. So he's investigating something, and then he's trying to get to a high school, which we later on find out that school's name is Ouroboros, which is a very befitting name in retrospect. But he's there investigating something. He wants to meet the leader. Now, having sat at the end of the episode, it took me a little while because obviously there's a little time between. I ate something before I recorded this, and I was like, I just thought about some connecting dots between why Hibiki did what he did. But we'll talk about that later. Hopefully I don't end up forgetting. There's a good chance I will, but hopefully I don't. But he's hearing the news, or maybe, I don't know if that was around the time or before. I guess maybe like it's, well, because this was after episode 1. So it's like right after the death of the Blue Ranger and the most recent Sunday Showdown, because that was the first Sunday Showdown they had done as a quartet. So Hibiki's like, so Fighter D's doing his thing, but it's like I can't fall behind. Once again, he wants to try and change the Rangers so before Fighter D can do what he does, but it's like, right, Fighter D's already taken a step forward. To be fair, it wasn't him who killed it was Petrola, but it's still kind of like at the same point. Obviously, Hibiki doesn't know all the details, but still. So we catch up with Uskubo and Fighter D as they are stuck in cleaning duty for the Greens. And I thought that was so interesting because they're like, this place is dusty. And I guess like they don't really ever have a reason to use their headquarters because there's so few members. Maybe because the place is trashy and messy. And Hisui like has them just on cleanup duty. And Fighter D's trying to figure out like, why are we doing that? Where are the other members? And she explains there are no other members. She's like, other than me, Green, and you two, the newest recruits, there are no other members. I'm like, that is weird. But then I also thought about it. It's like, to be fair, it's not like we met a lot of the other Rangers in each of the other like groups either. Like we haven't really. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like other than like the junior like third rank members, like basically every Dragon Keeper's right-hand person, they're like the main members. Obviously, you get associated with every ranger, with every unit, but you like Red and Blue are the only one we've really kind of got to know the members for. Because I'm like trying to even think. I'm like, is there any other yellows we've met? I was like, no. He's the only green we've met, and we haven't met anyone in outside of Sahara's. Sasara, I said Sahara. Sasara's right-hand guy. Like, we haven't really met any other pink members that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing, but knowing, like, there's only 4 members. But Uskubo found a book of, like, information about the different members. And it's like, wait, there are other members. So what's going on with Green? Like, are they all dead? Or is, like, Green in this weird, awkward spot? Because the Green Ranger's off somewhere else. They don't know where. Well, at least Hisui knows, but because at first she's like, they're just not here. Like, kind of implying like maybe they're dead. Like not Green, but the other members. And then Uskubo found out like, no, there are like other members, but like because one of them was labeled as lost. I think he's the one that's behind Ouroboros. Can we see later on when we meet the quote unquote boss of Ouroboros? It was someone wearing green. I think the guy that they said lost. Not unless they're saying like, oh, he's dead. So either he faked his death and that's actually him, or lost as in like, we have no idea where he is. But like, I wonder, has like Green had the biggest issue with like traitors or something like that? That's what I'm curious about. We don't really know what that's all about. Also, there was a kaiju attack where some Red members got murked. And then when Red hears about this later on, he's like, yeah, Yeah, I've got some. I got a luncheon with our sponsors, which that's going to be an interesting side of things to kind of like once again the corporatization of the Dragon Keepers. We've kind of gotten a little bit of that, but like meeting the people who sponsor them and make the money. And once again, he's more so out of any of the Rangers. He's the biggest. Oh, the Dragon Keepers. He's the face of the operation. So he has to suck up to these people. So it's like, who are these corporations or these? Well, they got to be corporations, but who are these people? These sponsors he's meeting with? For a luncheon. But he's like, yeah, kind of brushing off the kaiju thing because I'm like, shouldn't you be dealing with that? But I'm like, right, you're an asshole, so you're gonna be like, I'll leave it to someone else. Why do I have to waste my time on that situation? So I guess that's all there is to that. But then again, it is that thing of, well, it probably benefits you for having this kaiju out there causing more and more issues because that just puts you in more and more demand and makes you come off more like the hero when you actually do swoop in to save the day. Because I think it isn't just the Rangers they're dealing with. Like, I think they're saying, like, yeah, this thing is murking people, like citizens as well. But it could also just be a thing of, like, Red's hubris and stuff like, it's not that big of a deal, and it's going to come back to bite him. But not really. It's like, oh, man, this sucks. Why did anyone tell me this was a bigger issue? It's like, no, we did, but you didn't want to listen. He's in his own world sometimes. I want to do things his way because it's like, that's boring. Who cares? I'm going to do the thing that's most important, my fame and reputation. So, but speaking of Red, we also got introduced to Shion and Urabe. I had to look it up who Urabe was just to refresh my memory, but I was like, yeah, they're both in Red. So we still don't know where the rest of the squads ended up splintering out amongst the others. So it seems like they're the only two that ended up in Red. So that's why I was like, yeah, I guess they're going to split up in two. Because like I said, I think there's, with the exception of Home Dude that's in the coma, I think it was like 10 survivors. It was 10 cadets, right? I can't remember if that includes Home Dude in the coma or not. But like I said, brought up last episode, it could still be a thing of maybe it's split evenly, but one unit could end up with one less than the others or something. But it might just be an even split all across the board. We'll have to wait to see. But Shion, because what did Red call them? He's like, I think monster investigators. I forgot what he called them. Like, I guess he was talking about what they specifically do. Because obviously they're the ones that go after the boss monsters, but I guess they are the ones that just investigate monster stuff in general. Explains why like the Reds were dealing with that kaiju thing. Just monsters in general, they contend with and deal with and investigate. And like I said, Yellow we do know is like the more research and development squad. So we still don't fully know what Pink and Blue technically do. Maybe we did know what Blue did, and I'm just not remembering. I don't remember them expressly bringing it up. This seems to be the season where you find out what each unit specializes in, even though we did find out what Yellow did last season, but that's because we kind of have an inside track with Yellow. But either way, Shion is being asked to investigate specifically the Green unit, specifically his fellow cadets, Uskubo and obviously, Hibiki, but Fighter D. So I wonder why he's specifically chosen, because he's like, right, I think there's some insiders here. I don't know if that's based upon, well, he found some insiders that he was contending with last season. There was like one he ended up dealing with personally, but maybe also the Petrola of it all. Maybe he feels warrants that. Cause like why them specifically and not any other unit? This might also go back to what I was saying before of like the green unit might be in a weird spot where like they have traitors and in the past, and that's why he's taken such an interest in them, or just like maybe green's just always like that squad's always been weird for whatever reason. So it's like we need to investigate them, especially considering they're the ones that go after the boss monster. So it could also be like whatever he's got scheming that maybe the others aren't aware of. Maybe it's related to the boss monsters, and he's trying to see like how close the greens get. Maybe not. Obviously, like the greens are tied to this Ouroboros thing, or at least one member is. So. But yeah, we get a proper introduction to Chidori in this episode. He is an informant. Specifically, he mainly works with the green, but it does sound like he probably works with the others as well. But he has a special relationship with the, which I'm almost on some level. I'm like, you don't think it's going to be a thing of like, that's actually green, do you? Maybe not. I don't know. Like, I just feel like there's going to, obviously, we know nothing about the guy. Like, the police ran his records last episode, and it's like, nah. And especially because Green is off somewhere at the time. So I'm like, it'd be interesting if, like, we get to know him before we find out who he really is beneath the mask. I don't know. because obviously we get a so like because the people we've kind of got to know the best is obviously pink, red, and blue were the ones we got to know the best. Obviously yellow and green are still big enigmas. So I don't know, man. I was like, there's always a possibility, especially because like all we know is his first name and his records kind of disappear. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind that Chidori might actually be green. Obviously, I don't want to know if that ends up being the case. I'll find out when the show reveals whether he is or isn't. So, but yeah, I'm just currently throwing that out because the timing is interesting. That Green's not around and Hisui's like, yeah, I don't know where he is. I wonder, does Hisui just not know who he is, or is it a thing of, no, I know who he is. I'm just not saying anything because it's like a very guarded secret type of thing. I don't know. Once again, I'm probably reading too much into it. But either way, they're investigating this school, which, while investigating the monster situation, the boss monster situation, this delinquent group, Ouroboros, that like basically hangs out in this abandoned school, ends up being something that came up in Chidori's investigation. So they go to investigate, and they go inside, asking questions, and obviously they have no fear when it comes to the Dragon Keepers and Rangers, because like they pulled up on Hisui like it was nothing. But to be fair, it's like, and I guess they assume like there's only 4 of you, so we have nothing to worry about. But then like the pseudo leader Gato is like, oh yeah, Nishiki, like give them the tour or whatever. And so they're investigating, and he points out like, hey, there's a guy that kind of looked like you popping up here, and Hibiki's like, what? I mean, Fighter D's like, what? No, that's crazy. Which Hisui is like, wait, are you a traitor? Like, are you part of Ouroboros? He's like, no, I couldn't be. But then he starts piecing together. He's like, why would Hibiki be here? It's like, that doesn't make sense. He investigates the dark side. Like, I handle the monster ranger side of things. He's gonna handle the more like fixing the corruption within the Rangers. But it's like it goes hand in hand, because both of your sides basically collide with this incident, because it involves a boss monster, but it also involves corruption amongst the Rangers. So that's where I was like, oh, that's so interesting. But that's why Hibiki was investigating. So it makes you wonder how did he stumble across that information, because they don't even know that necessarily, but who knows like how much Chidori really does know that he's keeping close to the vest. But yeah, like how did he, I mean, I guess it shows you how good Hibiki is, that despite everything kind of being out of the circle, it kind of gave him the benefit. I mean, just I guess so how smart he is that he was able to investigate and track that information out on his own to know that it led. But it's also, to be fair, he's following different breadcrumbs to lead him towards Ouroboros versus the breadcrumbs that led the green unit to this Ouroboros. So, but Nishiki talks about the fact is he used to want to be, like obviously like a lot of people, he looked up to the Dragon Keepers and wanted to be one. But after the most recent incident with Blue, it kind of scared him, and it's just kind of like, who can we really rely on? We can't even rely on the Dragon Keepers, which even Hisui was like, yes. She didn't attack him or anything. She just walked past him being like, yes, we have been pretty useless. Because she kind of seems like nothing bothers her, but it does weigh on her, because it's like, she seems like she is very flippant about it, but she does care. Like different people have their reasons for being here. And we ended up finding out from Chidori that, obviously dressed like in a school uniform, she doesn't actually go to school. She actually gave up on a normal life at the age of 10, because that's when she joined the Rangers. So everyone has their reasons for being here, whatever hers are. And maybe the school outfit is supposed to be a remembrance to hold on to some elements of who she used to be to keep with her, like some form of the life she had, or maybe it's just a constant reminder of what you're fighting for in a way, just kind of like the lives of other people. Maybe that's what the school uniforms were. Because I didn't think much of it, her being in the school uniform, because I'm like, yeah, literally every other Ranger is in their Ranger uniform, even amongst the right hands, all of them are in their uniforms except for her. But it's like, no, that, I don't know if that gives us clear insight, but it is something to think about. But yeah, Nishiki told them like, yo, if you want to investigate, like come here during the weekdays. I can't tell you more than that. And you're like, okay, what's up with that? They come back during the weekday and the school seems the same. And then it's like, yeah, but there's no one here. What's up with that? And then all of a sudden the school gets fixed, and then they run into Nishiki, and he's acting like this is an actual school. Everyone's acting like it's a regular everyday at a school. But the moment you break a rule in whatever capacity, it resets. It immediately makes me think of and this will be a slight Chainsaw Man spoiler, but it kind of reminds me of the Infinity Demon situation. It gave me those vibes. Obviously, not in 1-to-1, but it's kind of a. I don't know if time loop would be the right word. Maybe not. But I mean, the whole Infinity Demon thing, I guess you could say it's like kind of not really a somewhat time loop. You really just kind of stuck in between in a way, and because that's the thing of like we have no idea how much time is actually passing. Like, is time actually passing while they're in here? Because they find out like the main boss behind this is Magita, the snake. Because later on, Hisui, it's like there are 12 boss monsters, each one associated with a different referencing the Ito animals. And when I heard that term, I was like, well, putting Petrola as like the rooster and obviously Magita as the snake, I was like, isn't that just the 12 animals from the Chinese zodiac? And I looked it up, and apparently like there's similarities, but there are like also like slight differences. So I was like, oh, okay. So, but they use similar creatures, because I have to say creatures because obviously there's a dragon in the mix as well, but still. But yeah, I thought that was interesting knowing that they're associated like that. But we also find out most of them are dead. The Dragon Keepers have killed 7, which Fighter D's like, wow, how overpowered are you guys? The fact that you've killed 7. But then we find out Magita is one that has constantly gotten away. Now, this is where I kind of go like, okay, so that member of the Rangers that's involved in it, either he's possessed by Magita, the boss of Ouroboros. Once again, that's where it all kind of goes like, oh, like you're dealing with a snake and everything. It makes sense. I mean, even Gato's got like the snake tattoo on his face. But so either it's a ranger that has been possessed by Magita, because they can disguise themselves in human bodies, as we saw with like the one that Blue dealt with years ago. I think the one he had a run-in with, and that was before he became part of the Rangers, before he even became the Blue Dragon Keeper. But so it could be a similar situation there, or the green, whoever that ranger is working with Magita. They're the actual boss, or it might be a thing of Magita for whatever reason might be serving this ranger. If you're familiar with Trails, it might be like a Ishmaelga situation. I don't know. Once again, I reference that Trails a lot. It's like, if those games don't mean anything to you, that's just kind of a wasting my time making that reference. But it is what it is. So I'm curious to find out what that situation is like. Yeah, but yeah, this whole thing is an illusion, and every time you break one of the school rules, you reset. So it's like, yeah, we kind of have to live our lives here, just kind of gathering information while also just like not breaking the rules. And Fighter D broke 2, eating during class, and then also peeping in with the girls' changing room. He's like, I'm just gathering information. And then I lost Hisui. It's like, you reset us again. I swear I will reset your life. And so he has to kind of fall in place. And I thought it was interesting when Chidori grabs his shoulders, like, hey, like, I get it. You just gotta watch people enough to learn how to blend in. And then, like, obviously, so he's like, yeah, someone extremely smart like you, top of your class, would be able to do something like that, which now gets Fighter D work, because he's like, does this guy know the real Hibiki? Like, that might, and he's like, all right, I gotta like put my stuff on lock. I gotta blend in, look at everyone, study them. But then he's like, oh, this is so hard. I hate this like surface dweller stuff. It's boring. Like, he's like, I have no ally in this. Like, no one to help him like blend in and stuff. But then later on, Uskubo, it's like, well, like, you don't have much practice in school, do you? He's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I could see it. It's clear. She's like, my time as like student council president, which I'm like, is that real or not? Especially with the ending being what it is. But then my big question was, and immediately the show answered it, when I was like, what's going to happen when the school day ends? Like, what does that mean? And then immediately it hits 3 and it resets. And Hisui is immediately pissed, being like, what did you do? And D's like, dude, I didn't do anything, I swear, because he was just taking out the trash with Uskubo. But then all of a sudden she's talking about like, oh, what are you guys talking about? We should get to class or whatever. And you're like, Okay, so you spend too much time in this illusion and it becomes real. Because she was even the one that said, like, that is kind of just foreshadowing, interestingly enough, that, it's obviously like the whole conversation about this being an illusion. And even Uskubo is holding that food and she's like, or it's like, I don't know if it was like a cup or something she was eating. She was holding it. She's like, oh, but it feels so real, even it being an illusion. Ironically enough, she is the first one that kind of gets succumbed by it. So if they stay here too long, they get sucked into the illusion. So they have to find a way to break out of this. But if you break the rules, once again, you're resetting. And now they're kind of technically down a person because they probably won't be able to get out until, like, wake Uskubo up until they break this illusion completely. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So they're kind of on a ticking clock. And like I also said, who knows what the time frame is? Like, maybe outside of this illusion, no time has passed, but it's kind of like Tsukuyomi from Naruto. And even use an example I'd said before, like the Infinity Demon situation in Chainsaw Man, where it's like, well, like if I remember correctly, and someone can correct me, I don't think any time really passed while they were in the hotel. I think like because they were stuck in that certain specific point in time, like they were in there for like days, but on the outside it was like they weren't in there that long, if I remember correctly, but I could be misremembering. So it could be a thing of, hey, it feels like it's been forever inside of this illusion, but really it's only been like hyperbolic time chamber rules of like, oh, it's only been like a few minutes outside of the school. I don't know. It's interesting too because of the Nishiki of it all, because he was like, yo, I'm new here, I've only been here a week. He was able to, like, so they are aware of what's happening to him, at least when the illusion breaks, they're able to recognize it, because Nishiki's like, yo, come here during the weekdays, that's when this happens. Why this happens specifically on weekdays, who knows? Like, why that is, but on the weekends, the illusion breaks and they're able to be themselves. Like, I don't know why that's designed that way. Maybe next episode we'll get some answers on it, but I'm very, very interested to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.